What's up, guys? Welcome back to the All Love, All Hate Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 8, and I'm your host, Jacob Reeder.
I'm Chris Langley.
And I'm Payton Hedrick.
And we're going to get straight into weekly words.
All right, so the first story we got for this week's edition of the Weekly Words, we'll be seeing a familiar face return to the Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders has been activated from the injured reserve, giving him a 21-day window to practice and be active for any games coming up. This week's game, we'll see the Philadelphia Eagles take on in Philadelphia, the New Orleans Saints, our team. So the last few weeks with Sanders out, he's done pretty well. I mean, he hasn't done pretty well. He hasn't really played. His backups have done pretty well. Boston Scott and Jordan Howard being the two that really shocked everybody. People thought it was going to be Kenneth Gainwell getting all the touches. So with Sanders potentially coming back, maybe not this week, but maybe next week, maybe this week, I'm not 100% sure. How do you think that running back room is going to work? Do you think they'll go to a running back by committee because both backup running backs did so well? Or actually, all three backup running backs if you want to throw in Gainwell. Or do you think Sanders will take that starting role and get majority of the touches? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Miles Sanders is going to come back in and be the lead dog. Obviously, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard might take away a touchdown or so, and Kenneth Gainwell through the air. But other than that, I would play Miles Sanders as normal before the injury. But maybe even better now that they're using the running game a little bit more than they were before.
Exactly.
So I think Miles Sanders is going to come back and maybe not his first week back be necessarily a lead guy because those other guys have been playing well enough to get them by. But they have, in the beginning of the year when we saw Miles Sanders being the lead back, they were really pass-first offense. And now I believe that they have shifted to running the ball more than 60% of their offensive plays. And when you look at it, you have to, I think anyone can agree that Miles Sanders is definitely the most talented running back in that backfield. So when Miles Sanders does come back and he's healthy and feeling good and he's getting actual reps, he's definitely going to be the main back in that backfield. Because, I mean, Jordan Howard, he's kind of old. I wouldn't say washed up, but he's been serviceable. But I don't think he's really going to complement Miles Sanders that much. And, I mean, maybe Boston Scott because he offers a pass-catching back kind of opportunity to the team. So they may take a little bit away, but I think if they're still rushing the ball 60% plus, I think he still probably gets, of that 60%, probably gets a good 75% of those rushes. So you could see him coming in, I mean, getting 25 rushes a game. And as long as he keeps doing that, he'll be pretty relevant in fantasy.
Yeah, another running back that may be coming back this week, Damian Harris had a concussion, was out last week. Ramondre Stevenson came in and was great. Was one of the best scoring fantasy running backs of the week.
100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he played great alongside Mac Jones there. If Damian Harris comes back, I think that he still resumes that lead role. I don't think it's much of a competition. But if Harris is out this week, which he was limited before, then this week in practice, then Ramondre Stevenson is a full go. I play him as soon as I can.
Yeah.
But I believe Damian Harris will take over when he's coming back.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. The Patriots definitely believe in Damian Harris, and it shows why. I mean, he plays well when he is on the field, and he's definitely the number one in that backfield. Like Jacob said, whoever's playing, you probably want to start him, and that's who you should start. So going from that, we're going into another, now third running back that we're talking about, and that's Cordarrelle Patterson. He's going to be a game-time decision. And, I mean, last week we saw Wayne Gallman come into the game, and if Cordarrelle Patterson doesn't play, I would say you should definitely flex, if you have to, Wayne Gallman. I mean, Mike Davis really hasn't been showing any reason to be in your lineup, really.
Right.
I mean, I think the last few weeks he's gotten 5 rushing attempts.
Yeah, he's been probably the biggest disappointment out of all of fantasy, maybe up there with Robbie Anderson.
Especially since last year he stepped up, played pretty well, and Atlanta went out and paid the guy. I mean, they brought him in, and everyone thought he was going to be the featured number one back, and somehow out of the woodworks comes 31-year-old Cordarrelle Patterson,
Right.
and just makes him look.
I mean, we thought at the beginning of the season, like no one. I'll tell you this right now, I don't think anyone expected Cordarrelle Patterson to really be a valid running back option because he's been a receiver and return man his entire career. And we knew he was a gadget guy. He could be used at the running back.
He was
position.
on nobody's fantasy roster.
Right.
He was on nobody's radar. No one even considered. Oh yeah, I think Cordarrelle Patterson. I think I'm going to draft him. I don't even know if he was drafted in 5% of leagues. Just because.
Right.
I mean, maybe if you have a league that you got 25 bench spots, but
Yeah. The biggest surprise is basically usurped the biggest disappointment when you think of it that way.
yeah. And last thing to add, while we're talking about running backs in these weekly words, Elijah Mitchell had finger surgery today, I believe, and apparently the turnaround time for this finger surgery can be 1 day.
Wow.
Interesting.
So he can still play this weekend. I don't know if they really want to take a chance with that because like this is a guy that is going to be holding the football for most of the game. I mean, we saw how well he played on Monday night and how many times he got the ball. So if he is in the game, I don't know how I feel about starting him because like does that cause maybe you think that he might fumble the ball more? I don't know. I just hope that maybe they make the right decision and just let him take a week off, especially coming off of a big week. And it's a short week for them playing on Monday night. Let him take off. And also, Deebo Samuel is questionable. So, I mean, if we see ourselves this weekend, 49ers playing without Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel, which I doubt Deebo Samuel is going to miss. He's been dealing with a calf injury all season. It's just a little re-aggravation. He's probably going to take a couple days off and be fine.
Right. And he's been their most versatile player. That's what you need because the 49ers are still in the running.
Oh, yeah. He played amazing this past week.
Yeah.
But we saw Ayuk also run from the backfield. I don't know if y'all watched the game and noticed that. But Ayuk actually got some snaps, like I guess you could say in the running back position. Got a couple jet sweeps as usual. But if Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell aren't playing, Ayuk's not going to be able to take over that running back role. It's definitely going to be Jeff Wilson who's coming back. I mean, he looked healthy. He ran the ball a few times, but he really wasn't given like a whole lot of opportunities to really prove himself or anything like that. I think it was just kind of getting him back in the swing of things. But if both of those guys were out, I would say you should definitely flex Jeff Wilson. If only Elijah Mitchell is out, then I would say if you have to, if you're really looking for a streamer this week, maybe stream him at flex. If neither of them are out, you can keep Jeff Wilson
on your bench.
And
don't forget, if they're both out, there is one guy who is a fullback, but he's still doing pretty good, and that's Kyle Juszczyk. But
he'll be used to probably.
Yeah, probably not much, but I mean, we'll see. But
I think he caught a couple passes this past week from the backfield. I could be wrong.
He's the best fullback he's been the best fullback in the league the past several years, and honestly, he's been keeping it up. So, but that will conclude this segment, or this week's version of the Weekly Words. We'll not head into Girl Talk again this week. We've had a really short episode due to time constraints, so we'll hop right into Bourbon Bowl.
All right, this week's Bourbon Bowl, I'm going with another familiar face that we've talked about quite a few times, and that's the Chiefs and Cowboys. They're playing each other this week. I know we've brought up the Chiefs quite a lot in Bourbon Bowls, hot takes, everything like that, with last week my hot take being incorrect with Tyreek Hill, but he was close, 83 receiving yards. Had a great game, 2 receiving touchdowns.
2 touchdowns was pretty good bonus if you can't get 100 yards.
Yeah, so he definitely played well, just wasn't quite there. But anyway, Chiefs versus Cowboys. Cowboys are the hottest team. I believe they're on an 8-game win streak, 7-game win streak.
They lost to the Broncos, but
yeah.
But I want to say they haven't had a bye week yet, right?
I'm not really sure.
I mean, I can check for you what their record is, but right now they're leading the NFC East, and I want to say they're close to the top of the NFC, but they're up there with like the Packers and the Cardinals and the Rams.
So the Cowboys are definitely playing pretty well. I mean, Dak Prescott he's returned this year and he's played awesome. He's definitely doing well in fantasy. And we've also seen CeeDee Lamb step up and show that, hey, maybe he's possibly the number one wide receiver over there. But you really can't count out Amari Cooper. You can't count out any of their wide receivers or tight ends who have been playing well.
Yeah.
So,
just to let you know, they're 7-2. They had their bye week.
Yeah. So I think that this is going to come down to which defense steps up and decides to make a play. And, I mean, honestly, I think that it's going to be the Cowboys' defense that emerges better and they get the victory. Last week we saw Kansas City play great, but I believe maybe Tyrann Mathieu got banged up. I know he came off the field. I'm not sure if he went back on, but I think that Kansas City defense is not going to find a way to contain such a powerful offense with Zeke, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott. So I think that the Cowboys upset the Chiefs on this one. I don't even know if that's an upset at this point with how the Chiefs have been playing as of lately, but
the beginning of the season would be considered an upset.
Yeah.
Probably not now, but
because I don't think anyone expected the Cowboys to be where they're at right now. I don't know if anyone really even expected them to win their division this year, just coming off of Dak Prescott having such a big injury and just not knowing how he's going to return.
Yeah, he's going to be comeback player of the year for sure, barring anything happens. And let's not forget the NFC East was pretty bad last year.
Yeah.
So, but no, you know what? So who you got winning the game?
You got
I have
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
I'll take Chiefs.
You're going to take Chiefs. Why you want to take the Chiefs?
They're just hot right now, just like the Cowboys, and I just trust them to get back on track. They got back on track this past week. I think they just keep rolling.
Yeah, and they did it against a division rival who usually beats them. I think the Raiders are kind of like one of, like that team that like always has like their number.
Right.
It's like you always have that like one team. Yeah, you always have like that one team that's technically your kryptonite. Like how for the Saints it's the Niners, or for like the Patriots it's the Giants. It's always
or how
like
the Saints tend to find ways to beat great teams such as Tampa Bay
and Green Bay, and then proceed to lose to teams. Yeah, any given Sunday is basically the trope of this entire season. I'm going to take the Cowboys for this, even though I really don't want to because I'm not a big Cowboys fan. But I know the Chiefs they got hot last week. They're probably still like riding that momentum, but this is a must-win game for the Cowboys, not just for their season, but basically like to cement themselves saying, hey, we're legit NFC contenders. We're legit Super Bowl contenders. If you can't beat the team that went to the Super Bowl last year, even though they haven't been the best team this year, that's going to be a gut punch, and you need to win a game like this. Because who knows? There's still 8 weeks if you count this week. There's still 8 weeks left in the regular season. Any team, they could be 7-2, but then they can end up being like 9-8. Like anything's possible. So I'll go with Cowboys on this one. I think they have held their own with their defense, especially with the emergence of Trayvon Diggs, and you still got a stout front seven that can put pressure when it needs to. I think they'll be able to hold out against the Chiefs, and I think the Cowboys will move to 8-2. I can't believe I just said that. But it happens. I'll hop into my Bourbon Bowl next. This is another game. This one's not really, I wouldn't say, as like exciting of a game when you compare it to like Cowboys and Chiefs, obviously. But we are going to see a coach against his former player. As we know from last week, Cam Newton got re-signed to the Panthers, came out, scored 2 touchdowns, screamed, "I'm back" to the camera, because he was officially back. And they're playing Washington this week, which, for those who don't know, is coached by Ron Rivera, the former head coach of the Panthers. He helped lead them along with Cam to the Super Bowl back in 2015-16. So for this game, both teams are kind of still like in that fog. The Panthers were competitive throughout the beginning of the season, then just kind of nosedived since Darnold just couldn't get anything done. McCaffrey went on IR for a period of time.
I think it definitely had a lot to deal with McCaffrey.
Yeah, McCaffrey
holding the weight of that team on his shoulders.
The literal backbone of that offense is one Christian McCaffrey. I agree with you on that. So, in Washington, they do have momentum on their side because they just took down Tampa Bay, which was pretty good considering Washington's been very, very questionable the entire season. And I really don't know if it's mainly because they couldn't get anything done on defense or their offense is struggling. I mean, Antonio Gibson was not a factor for a while. Terry McLaurin, he's still doing pretty good, but like he's been on the quiet end because he's being overshadowed or he's not really putting up as good points as you would assume. So this game, I think the whole storyline is really coach versus player, kind of like how we saw Brady versus Belichick begin this year. But I think for this game, I'm gonna go with Washington. The reason I believe that is because they have momentum on their side coming out of this game, and even with Newton back, and I think he has a chance of starting this week. I think there was talks about him starting. I just think Washington's going to be more ready for this game. I feel like Carolina's still going to be trying to fix itself and getting prepared with now having Newton back on the team. So I'm going to have this as a win for the Washington football team. What do y'all think?
So, I do kind of like Washington. I'm not a fan of Washington football team. Don't really follow them all that much. But what I'm saying is I wouldn't oppose you saying that you think Washington football team could win, because Ron Rivera, when he was asked last week after their game, if Cam Newton plays, have you been preparing for this? Are you preparing for Cam Newton? And his simple response was yes, they're ready for Cam Newton. So I think that he wants to kind of maybe prove something to everybody and prove that, he's there to turn this Washington football team around. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Cam Newton is, a positive force in that locker room towards these guys and really takes that leadership role, because, yes, Sam Darnold wasn't playing well and Christian McCaffrey was out. But I think it comes down to Sam Darnold really isn't much of a guy that can rally up the troops and be a strong influence to go ahead and I think the leadership role is more important than it seems in this matchup. And I think Cam Newton really brings that out in some of these guys. He's played with a lot of them before, even though he's against his old coach who probably knows more tricks about him and more things about him than what meets the eye and what everyone else sees.
Right.
I still think that Cam Newton goes in there and gets it done. It's not definite that he's playing, but when the coaching staff was asked, I'm not sure exactly which coach, because I don't believe it was the head coach that said it. It might have been the quarterback's coach. But they're trending towards Cam Newton being the starter this week.
Yeah.
So I think that Carolina wins.
And let's not forget, Jacob, I'll let you go on this next, but let's not forget, with the coach going up against his player, both of them are going to know their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised because Rivera is a defensive mastermind. He helped, prepare Luke Kuechly into the linebacker, basically the greatest linebacker of the 2010s, up there with Patrick Willis and a few others. The same thing with Cam Newton. He's going to know how Rivera is on defense, while Rivera's going to know how Cam does on offense. It should definitely be a battle. So just to keep an eye on that, because we have former players going against former coaches. They know each other's numbers. It should be entertaining.
I just don't think that Washington defense outweighs the capabilities of Carolina's offense.
Right, and it doesn't help Chase Young is now out for the year, which is basically their defensive star on that team.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Panthers, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my hot takes section. But I'm going to go into my Bourbon Bowl. I want to talk about the Jets and Dolphins. Not necessarily the matchup too much, because these teams aren't too hot. Neither of them have too much talent. But one guy I did want to talk about was Elijah Moore, the receiver for the New York Jets, who has been playing very well as of late. He's an uber athletic guy, not too tall. I think he's probably maybe 5'10" or something like that. But he was great last year at Ole Miss for the Rebels, and was kind of quietly producing incredible amount of stats and yards and touchdowns and things like that, and getting the eyes of NFL scouts. But he's been playing well as of late, has scored touchdowns in the past couple games, and over 10 points the past few games. So just like watching him. He's on my team, so obviously I'm excited about him. But that's a guy to watch for, and hopefully maybe he can start getting even more reps during games and kind of take over Crowder and be the next guy after Corey Davis, who's a bigger, more wide receiver one, that he can come out and be the guy that they drafted him, I believe, in the second or third round to be.
I want to say he was the second round.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot. We didn't have many receivers fall off. Well, actually, we did have quite a bit of receivers outside of Chase, Waddle, Smith, and Bateman. I'm probably forgetting maybe one in the middle there, or Kadarius Toney. I think those were the 5 that were drafted in the first round. But I think Elijah Moore was 6 or 7. He was close. And the only thing I'm worried about with Moore is he does have Joe Flacco starting at quarterback this week, which could be it, could be anything.
Yeah,
but
I'm not saying especially this week, just in general. I wanted to get him in the segment just to be able to talk about it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he came out and like shown, he can play ball, which is important because the Jets. I mean, I thought Jets were going to be kind of a dark horse year just to make a wild card, but this hasn't worked out. I don't know if it's because the injuries are happening or if they're just still in like that 1 year mode where they're trying to like get all the the systems like and the circuit set and like in sync. So I'm not sure. If I do ask you though, like just to ask, who do you think will win that game though?
I'll probably take Dolphins. Just Tua is more talented than Flacco at the moment, and I think that the team behind him will help him more than Flacco will.
Okay. Payton, who do you think will win that game?
I think I have to choose Dolphins, and just to throw a little bit of a spin on there, Mike Gesicki, 0 points last week. Although he was targeted,
he had 7 targets.
They were just awful throws, or just I believe a couple of them were on routes where Tua was looking for a flag that he didn't get. It was not very good for him last week, and I know he's in a lot of people's starting lineups because he's been playing so well.
He's a top 5 tight end right now in fantasy before that 0 points.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw a little spin on this. This isn't a hot take or anything. I think Dolphins are going to win, and I think we see Gesicki turn around and probably get a touchdown this week.
For sure. And I think I'll go with you guys on this too. I think the Dolphins will just be able to hold their own. But we did see there were 2 teams the Jets did beat this year, and that was the Bengals and the Titans.
Yep.
2 teams that are probably going to make. I mean, Titans will lead in the AFC, and the Bengals might be a playoff team. Well, I say may because they haven't really been looking good, but they did have a bye week, so they'll be able to restart.
We'll see.
Well, so guys, just remember the Mud Dogs won the Bourbon Bowl. Let's just hope that we each win our own Bourbon Bowl this week.
We'll see.
And we'll hop into our last segment, which is hot takes.
That's a spicy meatball.
So, the first hot take we'll jump into, I'll start with mine, get it out of the way. I'm going to go hop back into the Jets versus Dolphins. This one's a pretty easy take. I need a win. I'm 0-7. He's 1-6. He's 1-6. We're all just doing terrible this year. I just need a win because I'm sick and tired of losing. So, I'm going to go with, in this game, Tua throws 2 touchdowns. That against the Jets, it's like, really? That's all you think he's going to throw is 2? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be safe this week. If he somehow doesn't score 2, I think I might just retire from hot takes because it's just that bad. So 2 touchdowns from Tua. I'll do 2 passing just to be on the safe, just to make it at least like legit because he could score touchdowns on the ground.
Right.
I mean, we know he can. He
did it last week.
Yeah, he can definitely run out of the pocket and scramble. So for sure. So Jacob, what's your hot take?
Yeah. So as I said, I'm gonna go back into the Washington football team Panthers game. And I'm going to pick DJ Moore. Washington football team has been terrible against the pass, really terrible against everything recently. Right. But the pass especially, DJ Moore I think is going to score more than 15 fantasy points this week against a pretty terrible Washington football team defense. It's at least allowing fantasy points wise.
Yeah. Do you think is this PPR or half PPR?
This is half. So we'll only talk about half right here. But half PPR, over 15 points. Okay. He's going to get back on track. He's been pretty terrible for the past 5 weeks, which I traded for him right when he started being terrible. So it's not been a great thing to see.
All the trades have just been not working out this year for a lot of players and a lot of teams.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but I think he gets back on track this week against a terrible defense.
Okay, and the closest off, Payton?
Yeah, so I'm going to get into mine, and that's going to be in the Chargers versus Steelers game. And I'm going to go into Mike Williams, he started the season great. I believe he was like wide receiver 1, week 1, maybe. I know he was top 3, but for the first 3 weeks of the season, he was up there with, Cooper Kupp, and technically I think Cordarrelle Patterson was up there, but not too worried about him. Anyway, they're playing the Steelers this week, and the Steelers are pretty banged up and dealing with COVID-related illnesses that are going to have some guys out. Minkah Fitzpatrick is out with COVID. Joe Hayden.
That's a big loss right there.
Yeah, Joe Hayden didn't practice. He's questionable. Who else? T.J. Watt is questionable. That says a lot. Even though he's not going to be directly covering Mike Williams, obviously, but he's a big part of their pass rush defense. And if you give, we know this. If you give Herbert time to sit in the pocket and step back and step into the ball and throw it, Mike Williams is going to be there to catch it.
For sure.
And it's going to cause some big plays. So, I mean, whether a couple of them play, none of them play, as long as all of them don't play, I think it definitely allows for a little bit more of an advantage for the Chargers. And on top of that, Keenan Allen, who, I mean, he's questionable every week, again, is questionable. So there's always a possibility he doesn't play. It just depends on how he's feeling, but he's probably going to play.
Yeah.
But all that being said, Mike Williams in half-point PPR, I'm going to say that he breaks 15 points this week, gets back into the groove of what he was doing before, break that little 5-point 3-week stretch he's got going on here, and really goes back to where he was in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it hasn't really been just him. It's been the whole Chargers team.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, Herbert's been...
He had one boom week, but other than that, he's been kind of off.
Yeah.
Which is kind of insane because he looks so good. And
I thought Chargers were
going
to run away with the division by now, but now it's still close. That AFC West is the most competitive division.
Yeah, I was before the season, I was kind of all in on just about every Chargers player on the offense, thinking that they were going to be
Josh Palmer specifically.
Drafted Josh Palmer in the rookie draft. I mean, I just thought everybody was going to be so dynamic in that offense that it was going to just boom and everybody was going to eat. But
I mean, they're definitely keeping it up. But I guess we'll see. Just guys, I'm hoping for the best. We at least get more wins, because right now we look like we're tanking for the number 1 overall pick, which is not something I'm proud of. But Jacob, close us out.
Yeah, so we appreciate y'all coming to the 8th episode of the All Love, All Hate Fantasy Football Podcast. Hope to see you next week. Please like, share, all that kind of thing on our video. And I'm Jacob Reeder.
I'm Chris Langley.
I'm Payton Hedrick.
And we'll see you next week.